Good morning and welcome to each of you. Delighted to have you join us. There are 60 of us participating in our forum today. We gather this morning to learn more about the future of Duluth golf courses. This timely offering is sponsored by our friends at the Duluth News Tribune. The Tribune has sponsored our forums since 2010. And so for the past 11 years, they have been our partner in making sure that there is spirited community conversation regarding issues of the day. A special thank you to the Tribune's executive editor, Rick Lubbers. Rick serves on the Chamber's board of directors, and he is one of our vice chairs. I am delighted this morning to be joined by my friend, Jim Filby Williams. It has been my good fortune to know and work with Jim since he moved to Duluth in 2006. Jim is a smart guy, and for those of you who know him, you understand that to be true. I know that to be true because I've worked with him, as I have shared, and I know that he is a graduate of Yale University, where he received his undergraduate degree, and he earned his master's degree from the University of Minnesota Humphrey School of Public Affairs. But most impressive, and what validates his intelligence, is that he wisely courted, fell in love with, and dated and married a Duluthian, which is what brought him to Duluth back in 2006. And so he started with Animal Allies as their executive director, did a wonderful job there, raised $4 million to help support that new building. And then it was on to the Duluth Superior Community Foundation, where he was the director of community philanthropy there. And then I remember very distinctly in 2013, when he transitioned to the City of Duluth. At that time, he was the director of public administration. What had me so excited was I knew I had a person, very talented, capable individual, who now could be a resource to the chamber and to our business community. And he has been that for us since then. We have had a healthy and very productive working relationship since that time. And one of his responsibilities now, as he is transitioned within the city's administration, taking on additional responsibilities, is that he is responsible for determining the process for making decisions related to the future of Duluth 2 public golf courses. So this morning, our plan is this, and before I turn it over to Jim, Jim will be giving a PowerPoint presentation, and he has updated it for today's gathering. It's new, and if you've heard him in the past on this subject, just know that a lot of time has been put into updating this report to our business community and to our greater community as well. And we plan to have that be 20-25 minutes, and then we will open it up to your questions. But your questions, because of this virtual format, will be through chat. So I encourage you to enter your questions, and we will have two of the chamber's, my talented colleagues, reviewing those questions, looking for themes, so that your question may not be asked just as you had presented it in chat, but rather reviewed and determined that it is a popular question and one that others have as well. And Kathleen Prevett, our director of events, will come on to the screen right after Jim's presentation and present him with your questions in that format. And so it is a great pleasure for me to introduce my friend and an outstanding resource for all of us who live and work in our beloved Zenith City. Join me in welcoming Jim Filby Williams. Jim, thank you, and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you for the welcome and the opportunity, David. My name is Jim Filby Williams. I serve as the director of the Property, Parks, and Libraries Department for the City of Duluth, in which role I have spent several years working with golfers and golf industry experts to assess options for saving the city's financially troubled public golf program. In February of this year, the city announced its intention to permanently close Lester Park Golf Course after one last season in 2023, when Enger Park Golf Course is slated to be closed for renovations. While the city has chosen to pivot to focus on saving golf at Enger Park, many longtime Lester Park golfers are having understandable difficulty pivoting with us. In hopes that the city, the Duluth golf community, and the entire Duluth community can move together to save golf at Enger, I will present to you today on the decision we have made, why we made it, and why it is a practical necessity for the bulk of golfers to at least accept the closure of Lester and devote their full attention to saving Enger. The story of our way forward begins with the history of how Duluth golf arrived at its current financially troubled state. Next slide, please. The root of Duluth golf's current financial difficulty was the 20-year golf course construction boom ending in 2003, when the United States added 3,602 golf courses, an increase of 29%. The Duluth area fully participated in that boom, adding 72 new publicly accessible holes in the same period, among them 18 new holes constructed by us, the City of Duluth. Next slide, please. The golf construction boom was followed by a 15-year golf participation bust, in which US golf participation dropped by 23%. The city golf program has been hit hard by this downswing, suffering a 44% decrease in participation from our early 2000 high. Next slide, please. The magnitude of this boom and bust produced a durable golf industry consensus that the US golf market is oversupplied, or in other words, that there are simply too few golfers to keep all of the nation's golf courses in business. No less than the National Golf Foundation and other respected champions of the game have solemnly declared that some courses must close so that the remainder may flourish. The market correction is well underway. More than 2,000 US golf courses have closed since 2004, and approximately 1,000 more must close to restore the early 1990s balance of golf supply and demand. Next slide. The market imbalance that burdens the US golf market is particularly severe here in the Duluth area, which is among the most oversupplied golf markets in the nation. According to National Golf Foundation statistics, the Duluth Superior metro area has more public golf holes per capita than 94% of 382 metro areas in the United States. Next slide. The oversupply of golf holes depresses the financial performance of golf courses, both by decreasing the number of paid rounds at each course and, critically, by diminishing the ability of course owners to increase fees to keep pace with rising costs. In short, oversupply of golf decreases revenue because fewer people play at each course and they pay less to play. In Duluth, this dynamic has produced steady operating losses since 2002, now approaching a cumulative total of $3 million. The city has covered those losses by loaning money from the general fund that pays for police and fire and streets to the golf fund. Next slide, please. There is some mildly encouraging news here. The city has succeeded in decreasing annual golf fund losses from $309,000 in 2013 to an average of around $100,000 per year recently. Some residents have looked at charts like this and mistakenly concluded that all we have to do is break even and we're almost there. But here's the rub. While it is necessary and important for Duluth Golf to earn enough money to cover operating costs, it is not sufficient. Just like homeowners must have enough money to pay the electric bill and periodically replace the roof, Duluth Golf must earn enough money to cover operating costs and periodically replace failing golf infrastructure. It is the magnitude of those capital costs that is the foremost challenge facing Duluth Golf. Next slide. Based on a 2018 assessment by an independent golf facility expert, the overall condition of both city courses is poor. Clubhouses and irrigation systems are in extremely poor condition and vulnerable to sudden failure. The irrigation systems and clubhouses at both facilities are in such disrepair and are so essential to continued golf operations that the city must promptly renew or replace clubhouses and irrigation system for any course we decide to keep. Bare bones renewal of failing facilities at Enger and Leicester is now estimated to cost nearly $8 million. Complete renovation of both courses would cost more than $27 million. Next slide. Most cities pay for all or most of the cost of golf course capital repairs via a borrowing mechanism, loosely referred to as revenue bonding, in which cities borrow money to fund golf course renovations in expectation that those same renovations will increase revenues and profits enough to pay down the debt. Revenue bonding can be a viable way to pay for golf course renovations if there is a realistic alignment between the magnitude of capital borrowing and the plausible magnitude of post-renovation revenue gains. Unfortunately, the annual cost of borrowing to renew failing infrastructure at both of Duluth's courses dramatically exceeds the revenue gains that might materialize as a result of those improvements. Next slide. A simplified revenue bonding scenario can help illustrate. If we were to keep both courses, we would have to invest $8 million in critical failing infrastructure within a few years. If we were to borrow the $8 million via a 20-year revenue bond at current rates, the courses would need to run a profit of approximately $600,000 per year to service the debt. Of course, we are starting with $100,000 annual losses, not break even. And as a result, we would need to improve net operating income, not by $600,000, but by $700,000. To put it bluntly, it is not plausible to improve net operating income by $700,000 per year on the basis of a limited renovation that would construct basic clubhouses, replace irrigation systems, and little more without addressing the underlying problem of oversupply of golf in Duluth. In fact, in Duluth's oversupplied golf market, retaining and renovating both of our courses is a financial lose-lose that would leave Duluth Golf with twice as much debt and at the same time substantially less capacity to pay down that debt. Next slide. Scenario 2, also challenging, imagines that we retain and partially renovate one course, Enger. In contrast to scenario 1, right sizing to one course is a relative financial win-win. It simultaneously halves capital costs, alleviates the underlying oversupply problem, and thereby improves annual financial performance and increases the capacity of Duluth Golf to pay down debt. Next slide, please. To be clear, attempting to finance limited renovation of Enger golf facilities is itself a difficult and uncertain goal. This slide summarizes our transparently aspirational aim to pull together the $4 million necessary to complete the most critical repairs of failing golf infrastructure at Enger Park. We think that post-renovation, Enger will generate profits sufficient to support $2 to $3 million of borrowing for capital. The remainder of the necessary funding is frankly uncertain. We will seek to secure it through some mix of proceeds from sale of small council identified parcels at both golf courses for multifamily residential development, potential private investment by a new course management firm, potential community contributions. If we cannot come up with at least $4 million to address the failing clubhouse and irrigation system at Enger, golf at Enger will be in jeopardy. Next slide. At this point, I want to pause the golf business talk, which I fear is oppressive, and take a moment to acknowledge the great importance of Duluth Public Golf to the community, to Duluth Parks, and especially to those who have played at Enger and Leicester over the years. More than 3,000 local residents play at one or both of our courses in a typical year, averaging 17 rounds per person. For these residents, Duluth golf is essential to personal health and well-being, a vital means to stay active, to connect with others, and to enjoy the natural world. Extended across years and generations, experiences at Leicester and Enger have made both courses cherished places where memories are made and happily recalled. Such places are rare and terribly hard to lose. The prospect of losing Leicester golf in particular is a painful one that people have experienced and will continue to experience. Something like mourning the loss of a loved one. And like losing a loved one, the pending loss of Leicester golf is difficult to accept. The city receives many emails from residents sharing ideas they believe and hope would be enough to save Leicester golf. I want to take a few moments to walk through some of the most common suggestions, and in each case, illustrate why they cannot be sufficient to save Leicester golf. I recognize that in doing so, I risk seeming overly harsh or discouraging, and I apologize for that. I do so as a direct expression of the city's earnest desire to save Enger Park golf, the practical necessity for the golf community to strongly support that effort, and our concern that continued golf community preoccupation with saving Leicester will divert energy and attention that is urgently necessary to save golf at Enger Park. Next slide, please. The first common suggestion is that the city could save Leicester if we just raised rates. Now, there's a kernel of truth here. In 2003, the 18-hole green fee without cart was $25. In the ensuing 18 years, that rate has increased by just $2 to $27. If we had increased the rate over time to keep pace with inflation, rates would now be $35, 30% more than the current rate. If, here's the hypothetical, we could increase the rate to $35 without decreasing volume, the city of Duluth would indeed have a greater capacity to reinvest in our courses. The problem with this hypothetical is that large majorities of our golfers have stated that they are unwilling to pay substantially higher rates. In an independently administered 2018 online poll sent to our golfers, 90% of responding Duluth resident golfers reported that they would not be willing to pay $35, which is, in other words, to say they would not be willing to pay the inflation-adjusted 2003 rate. 68% stated that they would not be willing to go as high as $30, even though $30 is still 15% lower than the 2003 rate in inflation-adjusted terms. Golf industry analysts tell us that the root of this price sensitivity is not that our golfers care too little about our courses or are overly stingy, that the root is oversupply of public golf in the Duluth market that drives courses to compete by aggressively cutting prices, sometimes below costs. The solution, those analysts say, must include decreasing supply by closing Leicester and thereby giving all local courses additional latitude to restore prices without losing customers to competitors. Next slide, please. The second common suggestion is that the city could save Leicester by providing sizable subsidies from the City of Duluth General Fund that pays for basic services like police, fire, and streets. The problem here is that large majorities of Duluth residents oppose the large subsidies that would be necessary for us to partially renovate and continue to operate both courses. An independently administered, randomly sampled 2018 phone survey of all Duluth residents found that Duluth residents do not support large annual subsidies for golf. In fact, 51% said that it is not important for the city to have a public golf program at all. 39% said that the city should provide zero financial subsidy for Duluth golf. Another 23% favored a subsidy of $50,000 or less per year. Only 5% favored the subsidies in excess of $500,000 per year that would likely be necessary to renovate and operate both courses into the future. Next slide, please. The third common suggestion is that the city could save Leicester by using tourism tax proceeds to subsidize golf. Unfortunately, state legislation prescribes that tourism tax proceeds may be expended only for the purpose of supporting tourist visitation, and we have strong evidence that neither city golf course is a significant tourist draw. The city's golf management firm, Indigo Golf, solicits and stores data on the place of residence of Duluth golf customers. In the last year, for which we analyzed that data, 6.5% of rounds were played by bona fide tourists. That translates to about 4,000 rounds per year played by tourists. Only 3 city attractions receive tourism support on the order of the $500,000 per year or more that the city would need to retain and renovate both courses. The deck serves more than 1 million people per year, more than half of whom are tourists. The Lake Walk serves more than 1 million people per year and anchors our entire tourist industry. Spirit Mountain serves 250 to 300,000 per year, more than half tourists, concentrated in the slow winter season when our tourist industry is otherwise lagging. In this context, providing more than $500,000 per year in tourism tax for a facility that serves just 4,000 tourists simply cannot be squared with broader city practice or with state law. Next slide, please. The fourth common suggestion for saving Leicester is to engage a nonprofit organization to operate the courses in hopes that volunteerism, the absence of profit motive, and a community giving program would be enough to save them. Proponents of this idea assert, not unreasonably, that a nonprofit operator would immediately save the golf program more than $100,000 per year by foregoing profits. The rub is that foregoing profits to save $100,000 plus per year would still leave the golf program several $100,000 per year short of the funding needed to renovate both courses. Volunteerism and charitable giving cannot close a gap of that magnitude. And there would very likely be an offsetting hit to business performance in association with engaging a brand new nonprofit to perform a service it has never previously performed. Next slide, please. If there is any message I would like the community to take away from this presentation, it is sadly that golf community preoccupation with saving Leicester Park Golf Course cannot save Leicester Golf, but it can and is jeopardizing Enger Golf. To save golf at Enger Park, we need the golf community to accept that Leicester is going to close, then pivot attention and energy to the cause of saving Enger. We need golfers to engage in the planning process, to advocate for Enger renovation, and to contribute time and money to making it happen. And the opportunity to engage is right around the corner. Next Monday, April 26th at 5 p.m., Duluth Parks and Rec staff and the Parks and Rec Commission Public Golf Committee will launch an Enger Golf Course renovation planning process with a virtual meeting. We invite you, we urge you to participate in the process of developing the Enger Park Golf Course renovation plan that we hope to bring to the Parks and Rec Commission and the City Council in August for approval. You can find links to the Monday meeting on the Parks and Recreation page of the City of Duluth website. Next slide, please. This is a thumbnail overview of plans, the city's current plans for Enger and Leicester over the next 4 years. This year and into 2022, Leicester Golf Course will be closed for golf play, but we will continue to perform minimal agronomy. During this time, low impact leisure will be allowed on some areas of the grounds, walking, for example, but not on the greens and tee boxes because of their sensitivity. In 2022, we are hopeful that we will have progressed in our Enger golf course renovation effort to secure renovation financing and complete the renovation engineering and bidding documents. In 2023, if all goes well, we would reopen 18 holes at Leicester Golf Course and the driving range for one last season, while Enger Golf Course is closed for renovation. And in 2024, Leicester Golf Course would permanently close to golf play, but remain a public park with the future uses of and improvements of that public park space to be determined through a community-based process of park master planning. And then in 2024, happily, the Enger Golf Course, renewed, renovated, would reopen. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. And the next slide, I forgot to cue you. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Jim, thank you. That was wonderful. Our chat feature isn't working right now. Please place your questions in the Q&A section and we'll monitor that. But Jim, just to cue you up on some questions, how about this one? Few communities have a public golf course. Are there others with 2 public golf courses?
Thank you for the question, Kathleen. It is very common for communities of varying sizes to have public golf courses, and the number really varies widely as a function of the population. And so a city like Chicago would have more than a dozen publicly owned golf courses. A small city like Red Wing might have 1, and many have none.
And are you seeing other communities face this kind of challenge, having to close? Have you
Yes, I noted that 2,000 golf courses have closed since 2004. The National Golf Foundation reports that the courses most likely to close have been those public courses that are in this, what is called the value golf market, the relatively affordable golf market in which all municipal courses like the cities operate. So it's these courses, it's courses like ours that have been most vulnerable and have been most likely to close.
Jim, I have a question for you, Kathleen, if I can step in here. And that is,
yes.
We have been reading in the paper in recent months about the possibility of you referenced it early in your presentation about multi-unit residential developments. And specifically at Enger, the possibility of the driving range being transitioned to and accepting bids for some kind of proposal related to housing. And then the property, maybe it's the new 9 or the Lake 9 at Leicester that, or the property below that, that the city owns, closest to utilities and to streets and things such as that, that's entertained proposals for housing. What's the status of those, and can you entertain those housing proposals when you're still going to have both the courses in use for the next couple of years?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, David. At Enger, well, I should say that the 2035 City of Duluth Comprehensive Plan approved by council identifies 2 specific golf properties, one at either course, at both courses, that are to be explored for sale for residential development. One of those is the driving range at Enger. We have undertaken an RFP process, selected preliminarily a developer to work with, an excellent developer consortium, and that they have been engaging the process with the community, with our planning department for the last many months to develop their vision. One of the tasks of this closely associated Enger golf renovation planning process will be to determine how we will replace the driving range and what reconfigurations of the existing 27 may be necessary in association with that relocation. We are hopeful that we can find a way to make golf renovation and residential development complement one another. And if we try and exhaust all options and find that that is not possible, then we may choose another path. At Leicester, we put out an RFP for development of a 55-acre parcel. And we did not get an encouraging response. We did have very productive conversations with those who submitted or thought about submitting proposals, and the message was clear. 55 acres in Duluth, with its slow absorption rate for new residential development, is simply too big a bite. And so we're working with our planning and economic development department to focus in on the most developable subset of that 50 acres, perhaps 25 or so, that are closest to the existing transportation and utility network, whose development would be most in keeping with the City of Duluth comprehensive plan. I believe planning is going to be communicating in the months ahead how specifically they intend to move forward with that refined vision.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Kathleen?
Jim. Yes. Another question for you, Jim. Are you concerned about the success of Pike Lake, Northland, Ridgeview, etc., and should you be?
I would adopt the perspective of the National Golf Foundation, which is a concern not just narrowly for the City of Duluth golf program, but for all golf courses. Their perspective is, very frankly, some golf courses must close so that the remainder may flourish. Downsizing is necessary for all of these courses to rise. And as a result, to the extent that we address or fail to address the oversupply problem, all of the local public courses will rise or fall together.
And then a couple of questions are coming in on this, Jim, and maybe it's, well, we could show the slide again, but can you repeat the timeline for Leicester planning process and executing of what's to come? The timeline.
The Enger Golf Course renovation planning process will kick off formally Monday evening, April 26th at 5 p.m. in a virtual meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission's Public Golf Committee. That will kick off a 4-month planning process that will include 2 public meetings, 2 subsequent golf committee meetings, and after which we will bring a final Enger Golf Course renovation plan to both Parks and Rec and City Council for their approval. The process will be supported by a team of 4 consultants in the areas of golf course architecture, golf course irrigation systems, golf course financing, and a structural architect to help us address the failing clubhouse.
Thank you. Another one, someone is asking, can you share what opportunities and outreach there is in our community for individuals to access and try golf? Does the city partner with any organizations or individuals to make golf more accessible to area youth and marginalized communities?
Since 2008, I believe, the city of Duluth has not operated the golf program itself, but instead contracted with a private firm to manage the course on our behalf. And that management agreement is all encompassing, inclusive of maintenance and inclusive of programming. We are strongly supportive of our golf management firm, Indigo Golf's significant efforts to introduce kids and adults to the game. I would say that we and they could certainly do more and need to do more to lower financial barriers and cultural barriers to access of the game of golf. I think frankly, the community and the city have been stuck on this question of Leicester so thoroughly for so many years that it consumes all the oxygen in every room, and makes it difficult for golfers or the city to pivot to other issues of critical importance to golf.
Jim, I grew up in Duluth playing golf at Leicester and Enger and caddied there. And I remember the shape of the clubhouses back in the 1960s and 70s. They were old then. Now we go to Enger and really some severe challenges related to utilities, accessibility, handicapped accessible, disability type issues there, as well as having a facility that can not only meet the needs of the day-to-day golfers, but also serve as a resource for community gatherings and maybe even weddings and things such as that. That's going to take a strong investment. I suspect tearing down the Enger clubhouse in order to build a new one. People are very curious about whether or not that's possible, and is there reason for optimism that indeed somehow we can marshal the resources to, at a minimum, redo that clubhouse at Enger?
Thank you for the question, David. We have no choice but to take action on the Enger clubhouse. As you noted, the basement, locker rooms, restrooms are chronically wet and flooding. Portions of the roof periodically fail. The wall in the basement is saturated with water oftentimes and is in danger of collapse. There have been multiple junctures where we have narrowly averted condemnation. The issue is the prohibitive expense to either thoroughly renovate the existing building or to replace it with a comparably expansive structure. The we think that the city can probably only afford to pay for a very basic new clubhouse on the order of $500,000 to $700,000 that would provide all of the major functions of a clubhouse, but would be relatively no frills and would certainly, not have a capacity, to host large-scale banquets, for example. So I wish that it was possible. We wish that it was possible to do something more, but the costs quickly go to 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. And we need to focus those dollars just on saving the game of golf at Enger. I think people can see increasingly that the progressive failure of the irrigation system is terribly undermining the quality of the golf experience there.
Jim, I'm going to share my screen one more time. Attendees are wanting to know the Enger and Lester plan from 2021 to 2024.
Yep.
And then I will let David wrap up while that's on the screen. But thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Kathleen. I really appreciate it.
Jim, as expected, very detailed and disciplined and straightforward, which I greatly appreciate, and I trust the other attendees did and do as well. This continues to be evaluated, and as pointed out here in this updated sequencing going forward, is great for our participants to see as well. I have available to me, and it's also online, and it's posted within the city's website. The March 2019 very inclusive and impressive report, findings of the Duluth Golf Citizen Advisory Committee. I encourage our participants, if they have desire to get into more detail, to go and see that and to read that. I think it was a transformational amount of work done and presented in a very understandable fashion. So thank you for that. Look forward to seeing you at these gatherings as we go forward, and encourage our participants as well to engage, if you haven't already, as early as Monday, April 26th at 5 o'clock, and stay apprised of this important initiative. Thank you to all of you, Jim, Kathleen, and to those attendees, and appreciate you being involved in this. Let us know as well if you have other community issues that you would like to learn about. We at the Chamber take pride in having information available to our members and to the community in a timely fashion, in a convenient fashion. So hopefully from the comfort of your office or your home, you've had the chance to receive this update. We will conclude this program. Enjoy the rest of the day. Jim, I understand it's going to be 60 degrees today. A great day to get out to Enger and play golf at our beautiful Enger golf course. Thank you for joining us all, and have a great day. This ends our program.